Welcome to From Burnout to Breakthrough, how we use Microsoft tech to reignite purpose within non-profits. My name's James. I'm here from Foremost Pro. I'm our head of marketing, joined by my colleague Steve.
Hi all, I'm Steve. I'm our business development manager and I've worked with non-profits for the last 6-7 years, I think. So a lot of the job is just talking to them, helping them make sense of all the technology options out there and how to make them land well in their organisations.
Yeah, as I said, my name's James, head of marketing here. Steve's our BDM, works a lot, as he said, very closely with the non-profit sector. We both tend to get dragged out for these. It feels like every month these days, but just before we start, I want to say thank you to the TSI team, who we'll be talking about in a minute, but they're Microsoft's Tech for Social Impact team, and obviously I'm assuming they work with a lot of you and help to organise this, so thank you. So today's agenda, what are we talking about and why are we talking about it? So we'll quickly cover over Microsoft TSI team. As to say, they've helped organise this, so it's only fair that we give them a quick shout out. We're actually going to be addressing burnout within non-profits. Me and Steve will talk about this more, but it means the same thing, but I think it needs to be looked at slightly differently when we are talking about it from a charitable non-profit angle. We're going to explain how technology can help, and we're actually going to reimagine the work week, and so explain actually what things can and should look like in the perfect world. First of all, though, excuse my language, but who are we and why are we talking about this? Which is a fair question. So we are from Foremost Pro. We're a Microsoft partner. We've been going since 2012. You can see who we are on the slide. I'm not going to sit here and read that out. But we were founded to, I'm trying to figure out what our CEO might want or might not want us to say, but he founded Foremost Pro because he didn't like what was happening within the non-profit sector, with non-profits being charged full amount by sort of, your large Microsoft partners, being charged for every last penny and every last whistle. I've been with Foremost Pro for the last 2 years now, and actually one of the big reasons I took the job is when I was being interviewed, speaking to Glenn, our CEO, he actually said, look, there's only so much money that any one person needs. Everything else gets ploughed back into the business for discounts to the non-profit, which combined with Microsoft's discount to the non-profit sector leaves you all in quite a handy position for digital transformation. Think about, am I right saying about 60% of our client base, Steve, is non-profits?
Yes, that's right. Vast majority.
We do take commercial clients, clearly. As it was explained to me once in a manner as a marketer, I appreciated. You can't give everyone a drink until you filled your own cup. But we do, as I say, specialise in non-profits. We speak your language. And in fact, our oldest client, Anthony Nolan, the cancer charity, has been with us for the last 13 years. They were our first client and they still work with us today. And should probably point out this. They're not working with us on the same project that's taken 13 years to deliver. That has been multiple projects over multiple years. So who we work with, as you say, there's a lot of non-profits there. If you want to call out a couple of them, Steve. Some of your favourites, maybe.
Some of the ones that we've started working with, maybe since I've been here or more recently, we've got the likes of Rethink Mental Illness, who are kind of a large charity using Dynamics and the Power Platform. We've got some chambers of commerce that we work with on sort of the more not-for-profit membership side. We've got organisations like Duke of Edinburgh, and there's always common themes that they're all experiencing burnout to a degree when they get in touch with us. Yeah, there's lots of different reasons that can happen, but we like to think they're all in a good place now and working with them to just continually improve what's working well, really.
I see what you did there. That was a nice segue back into the topic for the day. Before we do that, though, I just want to give a quick shout out to the TSI team from Microsoft, without whom this webinar wouldn't be happening today, or if it was, probably would be happening without a lot of you, because I know they've invited you. So the Tech for Social Impact team is Microsoft's philanthropy arm. They're actually a sub-department of Microsoft Philanthropy, and they don't make a penny. Every single penny they make, every non-profit client that they comes to Microsoft, that gets all put back into the into non-profit discounts and non-profit working. So they actually operate as a non-profit themselves, empowering the non-profit sector. And their mission is to empower every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. which I think is a really admirable goal. One of the reasons I like coming to work in the morning. So what do they do? When they were founded, and I don't think they've been going for quite 13 years now, but it wasn't that far. I think it was 2017, I think they set up. They wanted to create a new business model, and they wanted to build that around capacity building. And a lot of what they do is through the partner ecosystem. So they will advocate for non-profits. They will give huge discounts to non-profits. And when I say huge, I think some of our commercial clients would cut, well, somebody's right arm off for some of the discounts that you all get access to. But they also wanted a social investment model where all that money got put back in so they can build affordable technologies and solutions. And a lot of the money actually does go into research as well for specific non-profit solutions. As they say, last year they raised they donated 4.7 billion in terms of grants or discounted software and services. The TSI team themselves, and there's only about 20 of them, I think, globally, managed to raise over 250 million, which Microsoft matched, and that was in direct donations. And they are currently working with 377,000 non-profit organizations. That's globally, although I'm sure you'd agree there's always more that can be done. I'm not going to go into this because that's a really text-heavy slide. Obviously, Microsoft sent these over, but you will see when you get the slide deck sent over to you. These are literally just some of the costs of licensing. So it's worth a perusal, but probably at another time, because I don't know about you, licensing costs, they're not the most interesting subjects, are they, Steve?
Unfortunately not. So that can be left to the likes of me, so everyone can do the fun stuff.
Steve, if you end up on a phone call with Steve after this, you may end up talking licensing, and you have my sympathy. But yeah, just finishing that off, bringing the power of AI to social impact organizations everywhere. The only way that the TSI team, and I'm going to lump in Forms Pro there, is ever going to achieve their wider mission is to ensure that every organization has access to the support they need so they can change the world, which is what you all do on a daily basis in one way or another. But let's get on with the webinar. Steve, are you ready? So what are we talking about today, and why are we talking about it?
So with burnout, these are, I think, the two types of people or organizations that we see in very different camps. You've got the right-hand side, exhaustion, frustration through not having the right tools to get the job done, doing loads of admin. And on the left, you've got people actually having their time unlocked to go out and do the stuff that accelerates your mission as a non-profit. And we'll talk a bit about how you can go from the right to the left and what that journey can look like.
Sorry, just a comment. So somebody's just popped in. So the 10 free business premium licenses have been discontinued from the 1st of July. We are aware. They are, if anybody sort of grabs them, that they are up available, which is why they're still on the slide deck for the next couple of days. But then, yes, we need to update a slide deck for the next one of these, I think mid-July. So thank you for that. So capacity versus meaning. And I love this quote. People don't burn out because they're too busy. They burn out because they've forgotten why they're busy in the first place. They've forgotten why they work for a non-profit in the first place. So burnout for non-profits, I don't think is feeling necessarily overworked, because I'm sure everybody could put their hand up in the room and go, yeah, I'm overworked. I think where the key differentiate for non-profits is they feel disconnected from their mission, why they're doing all this work in the first place. Do you agree?
Yeah, exactly. It's like when that mission starts getting buried under admin, people just don't have any breathing room or time to reflect on, why they're doing the work, why they enjoy working for the organization so much. And that can cause people to just stop feeling like their work matters, even when it does matter a lot, because they work for a not-for-profit organization and that's what they want to do. So that can be incredibly draining because they're very conflicting things competing with each other.
Yeah, I said burnout, as it says, isn't a capacity issue. It's a deeper meaning issue. And I drive the wider team regularly mental. Quite happy to hand my hold up and sort of admit that. Talking about psychology, because at its very core, marketing is just about, I shouldn't say it, but manipulating people to feel a certain way. And I'm a big fan of something called psychological moonshots. That's a very small change in framing or perception, just tiny in how you word something or how somebody should feel about something. But it's a very small change that offers a very large impact. And for me, I think, and for many NFPs, it isn't the workload that's burning people out. It's that sense of futility they feel when they're just addressing endless and endless admin.
I think as well, if you look at that concept of psychological moonshots and translate it into technology or digital transformation, that becomes small but impactful pieces of work to clear up, maybe specific issues or improve specific processes. A good example is when we work with a charity, their staff were overwhelmed with donor communication tracking, having to do all that manually, copy and paste that information from system to system, check loads of different systems before they actually know what's going on with a particular donor. And so just a simple introduction, in that case, of a dashboard, which just showed the impact of each campaign real time. Staff could drill into it, find the comms history straight away, know exactly what to talk to the donor about. Stuff like that, small change, but really impactful, gets them back on the, aligned to the mission. They feel empowered.
Exactly, energized, ready to, they feel proud again about what they're doing. People don't, I think, necessarily work at non-profits because they need a 9-5. A lot of the employment within non-profits is cause related. People are proud to do what they do. Maybe feels proud about doing endless admin, and actually just underscoring that mission with people and making them feel like they're making an impact. It's quite often actually the easiest way to solve burnout.
Yeah, just small shift, but disproportionate impact in a good way. Often the smallest improvement pieces of work have the biggest impact compared to the time and money that they cost to deliver.
Yeah. And I can't underscore that point enough. And actually, one of the easiest ways to do that, as we'll get onto in a bit, is with technology. So let's break it all down. Why are people burning out, Steve?
Yeah, it's rarely just the one thing, which obviously makes it a lot more difficult for all of us to identify and act upon. But yeah, it really is just like a cocktail of compounding pressures. So taking admin overload, for example, can feel like a death by 1,000 clicks. Like the example I was giving earlier, you can have so many different systems where you're entering the same information, and then you've got to do your work, but you've also got to enter that information so you don't forget it. So you hit your responsibilities, I guess, your KPIs, and when those two things compound and they get out of hand and you can't do it in the 9 to 5, then it becomes, well, why am I doing all this admin? And it kind of turns negative and causes people to lose sight of that mission and the charity objective.
And I think one of my biggest bugbears is it's not always the volume, it's the ambiguity. Now, I'm not saying non-profit workers should be overworked. You absolutely shouldn't. You all do absolutely amazing things, and you should be able to do a 9-5 and leave work at the end of the day and feel fulfilled. But what I notice in non-profits a lot is priorities sometimes get lost. They're not clear, or at the absolute worst, and this is the bit I always hate, everything is urgent, everything has to be done now. And I'm sure you all have felt like that at sometimes. But the problem with that is when everything is a priority and everything is urgent, then, well, nothing is. How are you prioritizing anything when it's all has to be done now? Because clearly not everything can be done all at the same time.
Yeah, that's it. I've seen just through a lot of the projects that I've personally been a part of or seen, just teams spend entire weeks putting out fires that probably didn't even need to be lit in the first place. And it's that pressure again. It's just all these different unnecessary pressures contribute to that draining of the overall morale of the staff.
And we're talking about the work volumes and the priorities. It's not just the sort of like, the lower level, junior workers as well. PM teams, leadership programs, they all struggle with this as well. Actually, being in charge of a non-profit can be quite lonely. Who supports the leadership team? If they're not feeling supported, technically, emotionally, or even just logistically, that isolation adds up and gives a sense of disconnect within the team as well.
I think another important point from what I always see, this is one of the most common things I come across with not-for-profits as well, is that staff are, especially in, like I say, a social care setting or a setting where they've got to take inbound inquiries or cases, spending so much time answering the same questions over and over again, but actually receiving a call or calling out to the person that submitted the inquiry, in essence, wasting a lot of time on stuff that can easily be solved by, for example, connect a chatbot to a knowledge base, surface the information from the knowledge base using a bit of Copilot flavor back to the inquirer if it's a case that's been resolved in the same way before, and then freeing up that human time. They get hours back then to turn that into check-ins and or innovation of systems and processes, or even just have a break.
Yeah, agreed. So yes, burnout is about overload, but it's not just overload. And that's the key. If you take away nothing away from this but this, it's about frustration and disconnection and wasted energy. You fix those, that level of disconnection, those data silos, those lack of communication, that sense of nothing I do makes a difference. These 20 Excel sheets that I have to deal with don't make a difference. You fix that, and actually everything starts to shift really quite quickly. So this is where this quote comes from. The opposite of burnout isn't rest, not for non-profits, it's purpose. And I'm not saying work everybody to death, complete opposite, but actually reframing that is much easier. So instead of sitting in the problem, start shifting towards a solution. Now, Microsoft have actually got a great stat there. 73% of non-profit workers say they feel overwhelmed on a weekly basis. That's not sustainable, and it's not your fault. It's quite often technology's fault. But once your staff start leaving, they don't come back. And actually, from a financial standpoint, bringing this to a cynical level, recruiting new volunteers and recruiting new staff is expensive. It's much, much cheaper and much more economical for you to fix your burnout now with your existing workers and existing volunteers. And I think that's a good point. This isn't just about your paid staff. This is actually about your volunteers as well, who can, like that, just disappear overnight.
Yeah, when I used to do a bit of kind of IT recruitment for not-for-profits, that's one thing I would see all the time is someone would feel really disingenuated until they left. And only then it's like, oh, no, we'll keep you, we'll pay you a bit more, or we'll give you this, this and that. But if those measures had been taken, or you just listened to the person before they made the decision to potentially leave, then you would have mitigated that from the get-go. And that, I think, from a burnout perspective anyway, working out how to turn that like overwhelm into more clarity for staff. I think visualizing it almost like a funnel, at the top big end, you've got all the noise that's around them with all the admin they've got to do. So if you work on cleaning that up and then getting into the next stage, looking at how to give clarity around the real priorities, once the noise is removed, then look at, right, why are we doing this? And what steps then do we need to take to get there, whether it's an IT project or a business change project or just improving a process or opening up a new team or department or something. And then once you've got that clarity and the priorities, then you can really start building confidence through small wins when change really then starts to happen off the back of that.
Yeah. And I think one of the best things to remember is actually what not to do. So if you are sort of starting to take these small steps, throw everything out and then just start small. So, I mean, we helped a non-profit, I think last year. I'm deliberately not naming names here because we don't like talking about internal workings. But they were struggling with burnout with a lot of their staff. They were struggling with volunteer sort of turnover. And actually, we started with quite a small thing. And we set up a dashboard internally just with 3 priority metrics that help their team go, look, no to direct distractions, yes to working on this. And everything, I know it sounds really castle in the sky type thinking, but stuff really does start to shift when you get that clarity.
Yeah. And it's that build of momentum afterwards as well.
Yeah.
Because like once you get a win out, you've got the template then for doing it in the same way the next time.
And another project. Yeah.
That's it. So they know where they're going then, and they know what progress looks like, I think is a big thing. It's like time and burnout, time spent working versus burnout is not a direct correlation in the not-for-profit sector, like you're saying, James. It's got to be, I think the correlation is how much they're bought into the mission rather than necessarily how much time they're spending working. And this is something that actually, especially this year, I've noticed quite a lot in the not-for-profit world when it comes to IT projects. Is shifted from doing massive upgrades or system or platform changes to we haven't got as much budget to spend because of just what's going on in the world. So let's just try and see what small projects we can do to be more impactful, solve some of those issues, like having a single customer view or something like that. And I actually think it was spurred on perhaps by budget challenges and other constraints, but it's actually proven that that is the right way to do these things, is bit by bit, gradually, test what works, fail a few times. And this is the same thing with burnout. Even if you're engaging people in not necessarily the perfect way, you're still engaging with them. You're still making them feel heard, and you're still trying for them, which is huge.
Yeah. So burnout isn't necessarily just about giving your staff paid time off and extra rest and hiring extra people, because that may not always be the most practical. And it's not even necessarily about purpose, although I've just been reinforcing that point. It's also about equipping them with, as Steve says, meaningful progress, letting them see that things are changing, building that momentum. And actually, our last webinar that is available on YouTube was about building something called a fail fast, fail safe culture. Some of you may have come across that before. It used to be just the tech sector that would talk like that. It's becoming a lot more common in other sectors and industries now. But build an environment where your staff can fail safely. So they're not going to do anything that is going to absolutely bring the business crashing to the ground, but they can fail, they can do it quickly, and then pivot and move on. We won't talk about that too much today because we spent a whole hour about last month talking about it. But if that is something you're interested in, either follow up with me and Steve after this, or you can find it online. So technology, it's relief, not replacement. This is the bit where we start to talk the tech. So we're moving away from the human psychology. I'm going to be bringing in Steve a little bit more because he's slightly more technical than me. But at Foremost Pro, we actually do like being a bit disruptive. But the disruption that we care about is human first. We can come in and you can give us £500 million. Let's just make a number up. We can put in the most expensive system that you want. But if Stephen Accounts keeps using his Excel spreadsheets, what's the point? You've got to bring everyone along for the journey, right?
That's it. But yeah, when you talk about disruption, it doesn't mean reinventing everything overnight. No. It's like I was talking about with the technology. It's a gradual mindset shift and like gradually empowering people to do things differently and better and more creatively. Yeah. And it's not about, I think that's a big, especially with AI, technology is not here to replace people, and automation, for example, isn't here to replace people. It's to unburden them so that they can actually spend more time. I can imagine you ask anyone who works for a charity, do you have time to do the work during your day that you want to do that goes directly towards your mission, whether that's engaging donors out in the streets or something else. So it's just unlocking more time and ability to do the human stuff and unburdening people.
Yeah. I mean, I often sort of compare tech to Lego bricks. That you done right, it should be, well, you don't just dump a big thing on people, stick in a single Lego brick that you can immediately start getting ROI from, and then stick another one on. A good example in the real world of that is actually Facebook or Meta. If anybody has as much white in their beard as I do on the call, you may remember when Meta first and Facebook sort of came into existence, and then they built everyone's wall and everybody's feed, and the entire internet lost their mind, and it was like, oh, I hate this, everything's changed and it's terrible. And actually they changed their model, and they changed a tiny little thing at a time, here a little bit there. Amazon do it similarly, that you'll never find the entire website just shifts overnight in one go. It's tiny little shifts incrementally building to something good. The key though is to avoid complexity, and that's actually the mistake when people are building little things on top of each other. If they don't have that goal in mind, if they're not working with a partner with a clear, let's call it the eye on the prize, it gets lost. And I don't want to call it when tech is misused, but as I wrote this slide deck, I probably should. What it actually does is it adds layers of complexity to stuff that just doesn't need 10 clicks when a single click would do. You're not there to create complexity or replace humans or add distractions. It's about helping people be faster, make smarter decisions, and feel more in control.
I think something you said was really poignant there around, yes, it doesn't happen often. So
thank you.
Just talking about like doing small projects and small bits of work that are impactful, but don't break the bank. they're great, but you still have to have the overall grand vision in mind, the why in mind. Is that, I don't know if anyone's heard the term shadow IT. It might again be something mentioned more in the commercial sector, but when organizations and teams and specific departments implement a new piece of technology, let's say, but don't talk to the wider organization about it, their organization doesn't have a technical design authority that makes people aware of what tools and systems they already have in the organization that they might be able to use, and there's no governance around putting in new bits of tech. So we often see it where that's happened, and it's like that spaghetti architecture where all these systems don't talk to each other. So for the teams, they work really well for processes, but when it comes to having a single view of your data that you can trust for like reporting, let's say, that won't be present if you've not built everything in a way that ensures that you can connect it all up in the middle when you put it all in. And so I think one good example of that is when we work with a charity, just a simple fix. I think turning some of these things into maybe practical examples might help everyone get thinking after this. So we work with a charity who they were just like paper-based onboarding forms for new donors, and all we did was get them help adopting digital forms, and then building a kind of automated process that when they come in, they get directed to the right people, they get a task assigned, so there's no thinking involved when it comes to the kind of pre-task admin. We worked it out with them that reduced the onboarding time of new donors by about 70%. And it was a really small project. Wow. And we built it so that it's, it linked up with their master data so that they could report on that speed, and then they could use those insights with the time they've then got back to proactively engage with those new donors and maximize the chances of long-term retention and future donations.
Probably even simpler example is something we try to do for everyone is to embed Copilot into their Teams tenant, so that when you're having meetings, you no longer have sort of like 10, 15 people around the room trying to desperately take notes. Was I meant to be listening to that? Who's going to action that? Who was meant to do this? Sorry, what did you say 2 minutes ago? Actually, just be in the meeting, listen to the meeting, be engaged with it, and let Copilot sort of summarize the meeting notes afterwards for you. It's fast to follow up. It gives you a much better conversation in the moment, and your staff again feel way less stressed.
That's it. That's the disruption we're talking about. It's not big, clunky systems, just like little smart interventions that give, and then going back to that burnout point, more time, clarity, energy back into the people doing the work. So it all ties together.
Absolutely. So next slide. So AI, we all know AI is artificial intelligence, and I could sit here and talk about generative AI and agentic AI and artificial general intelligence. And actually, if you ever want to start geeking out about AI and sort of digital twinning, feel free to give me a call because you won't shut me up. But actually, what I think we should sort of start thinking of it is it's not artificial intelligence, it's augmented intuition. You can't replace a human's judgment. You're not going to. So let's stop trying. Let's instead amplify it. We all know AI is everywhere right now. That's probably why we're all on this call. But especially in the non-profit world, I think the conversation needs to be different. Your teams are too lean. Your budgets are too tight. You have to think about this. So it's not about automation for its own sake. It's about amplifying the powers of your teams, who are all awesome, I'm assuming.
Thanks for the comment as well, Amanda. That's a good idea. We should maybe look into doing a little guide for kind of quick AI tips like that, because that's definitely something that we can help with. If you want to give me a shout after this as well, I can maybe try and walk you through some of that on a quick call. But yeah, I think the point here is AI, it should be like a second brain. And there's a lot to get past with the like innate fear that a lot of people have about it being a replacement. But like I keep saying, it's a tool that brings more clarity and momentum to the work that humans are best at. You could spend more of your time on stuff that allows you to use your empathy or your creativity or decision making, because those are all stuff that AI, bless it, isn't very good at. So get it to do the boring stuff, and then that's the reframing for staff, is that it's not here to take anything away. It's here to get rid of the boring stuff so you can focus on the fun stuff, why you're here anyway.
To address Steve's point, just think about how stressful work can be, just a day-to-day can be for your frontline workers, staff and volunteers, triaging dozens of inquiries with limited info. let the AI do it for them. Let it deal with incoming messages. Let it flag high risk language. And this isn't something you're necessarily going to be able to set up without a partner, but actually it is stuff that can do. It can monitor all your emails. It can monitor it can do a sentiment analysis and go, this person seems pretty angry. Maybe we should deal with this one sooner. Or this guy's just offered to donate £1 billion. Does anybody want to look at this now? And that's all actually really easy to do when you know how, but it means that you haven't got your staff just flying around left, right, or center. It's a really simple triage system with rules that you've put in place to prioritize the stuff that you need to prioritize.
And the result of those sorts of things, similarly to how you don't solve burnout by hiring more humans, you don't solve stuff like this, or the output of this isn't necessarily fewer humans, it's faster ones and more empowered ones. And viewing, I think, the charity sector as a slightly more competitive industry is what it always used to be, because really we are, you are competing for people's donations more so today than ever, really. Maximizing the people that you have and the work they can do to spread awareness about your mission and engage more new donors and supporters. That's what it's all about.
So I was actually just typing out to somebody in the comment section, trying to monitor both, but somebody's just commented saying definitely would be useful for prioritizing email inboxes. And actually one of my favorite uses of AI that I'm seeing at the moment is responses. So when an email comes in, you can set up your AI to have a response ready. Don't obviously send it back without having a human check it, but when an email hits your inbox, whatever rules you've got set up to prioritize it, send it to the right person, the email doesn't hit their inbox just as is. It hits them with a ready-made reply that they can review, edit, and then send, which I think is just awesome. It's augmented intuition. So it's still a human using their judgment, but now you've got better data, better timing, more space to focus on what's important.
Yeah, that's right. I think there's sometimes a negative perception as well. Like if you get your AI to do this sort of stuff for you, and is it going to take away some of your comprehension ability or creativity? Actually, if you look at the opposite side of the spectrum, people are able to spend more time doing things that are more creative, thinking out the box. It's actually bringing back their, I guess, those types of thought processes and those types of skills, so that have probably been hampered for a long time because they've been spending too much time on admin and looking around for stuff rather than actually. It's like, for me, like pre-sales meetings. If I'm buried in admin all day, it doesn't come as naturally to me to jump on a meeting with a potential client and talk them through the services that we can offer, because I'm not doing it all the time. And arguably that's the important part for getting new clients to work with us. And so by using tools like Copilot, I've spent significantly less time now than I ever used to on admin and documentation. And I think my skills, James might disagree, my people skills are a lot more practiced now than they would have been when I'd been focusing on all this admin. So it's the same as your fundraisers. They'll be more comfortable and confident going out and generating new supporters and income, and they'll get better at it, and they'll do it more. So it's all good stuff.
If you're a decision maker on the call, I would absolutely sort of say go and invest in AI. It will save you so much money. But if you are not necessarily one of the decision makers, but you have influence over them, I would recommend that you don't try and sell AI internally as a cost saving tool, because actually that argument isn't as powerful as some people may think. Instead, use one of those psychological moonshots that I was talking about and reframe it as not a cost-saving tool, but a capacity-liberating one. That's how you're going to win the hearts and minds of your staff and your higher-ups. Just say, look, how much time this is going to save us, and look, with that time, how much more we can do without feeling burnt out. Start small, win big. Right, Steve?
Yeah, so this is where I think the magic starts, not in a PowerPoint or a strategy deck, but in just these small, brave experiments, I guess is a way to label it. One thing that we always reiterate, conversations, projects, webinars, is that don't try and fix everything all at once. Just try and fix one or two things really well, And it's that point earlier about that then forms the blueprint or the template.
Somebody's just raised a really good point that I want to address, and it's a good one. So we also need to keep in mind the environmental impacts of using AI. And that's actually even more important for non-profits. And I don't want to get distracted too much because it's not for, it's a conversation for another day. There is ethical considerations for AI, environmental being one of them. As a quick comeback though, I would sort of say the genie's out the bottle. AI is here. AI is being used, and it is being used in the non-profit sector. Everybody on this call, give me a quick wave or thumbs up, can tell me how noisy the sector is and how hard it is to compete for donations. It's unfortunately, it's the cynical reality. There is only so much of the public that can donate money. AI may not be great for the environment, although the more we use it, the more it actually gets better and actually optimizes itself. So there is an argument there. But unfortunately, it's not going to go away. So it's using it to support your mission, I think is what I would how I would answer the ethical considerations for AI. But that's a subject I can talk for hours on. I don't think there is any right or wrong answer. And I think it's probably one that you need to come to yourselves within your own non-profit. But going back to Steve's point, sorry, I'm getting myself distracted. You're right, Free. Yeah, you need to think of it almost as like planting a flag. If you can automate even just one admin task and go, right, this is it. We are starting our AI journey. This is it. I don't know, automating volunteer shift reminders, automating meeting notes. It doesn't matter what it is. You're immediately freeing up time and reducing friction, right?
Yeah. Let's give another example of something like that as well. Another practical example. Just thinking, a non-profit we work with, a community sort of engagement non-profit. One of the ones that we started working with recently. They would get forms come in from their website, intake forms, and they would have to manually have a look at those when they come in, speak to other people to say, right, whose is this? Who does this need to go to? What, based on the content, based on the, what the inquirer's asking. And just by automating that process, so it was a really small project where we had a look at which teams and people were responsible for what, and then we set up routing rules. So an inquiry comes in based on the drop-down options selected by the person who submitted the form. That would then route to an individual or a team based on the content, and then a task or an action would get assigned for that person to then follow up. How to follow up, here's a summary of all the information. And so stuff like that really doesn't cost a huge amount when compared to putting in a new donor management system or a volunteer management system, for example. But that sort of stuff, it pays dividends in both save time, translates directly to return on investment, as well as making people again feel more empowered because they're not overloaded with trying to figure out how to respond to an intake form.
There's also a psychological standpoint to that, which is unfortunately how I tend to see everything from a marketing perspective. But it's actually, once the first time you do anything, it's impossible. You can't climb Mount Everest. It's too high. It's impossible. 20 years later, people are just strolling up and down it. I'm clearly exaggerating slightly there, but the first person to do something, the first time you do it, it's always the hardest. Once you actually do it, that was easy. What were we stressing about that? And then you can find people actively looking around the non-profit going, what else can we do? What's next? That was brilliant. That's where the momentum comes from, not from a 12-month roadmap that you've shown people, but from a single project that you're then almost creating sort of like AI ambassadors for, that are then looking around and going, that was brilliant. What's next? What else can we do?
That's it. And you've got to encourage those, like celebrating those wins. Yeah. That's it. Because get that all these things that can make people feel more involved, and it also helps you out as a leader at the same time. Celebrate a win, find ambassadors that will push that culture out to everyone, so they don't feel embarrassed or scared to celebrate their wins in the same way. And then kind of going back to that template part, one thing I find interesting about that question about the environmental impact of AI, I'm just thinking about ways that you might be able to mitigate that ties in with this. Once you've got a good template or process, or say prompt, once you've got a good set of prompts, work, instead of putting those prompts in every time and using that compute power every time, create a prompt library maybe, or a framework that you attach the Copilot to. So you're using less energy from an environmental standpoint each time you prompt it. But that principle carries over to when you've done any type of project, small template project really well. Don't just start using it, but don't document it. Document the win and the information and the process so that you can steal as much of that as possible for the next time you roll out a similar, for example, Copilot project. Half the work is then already done for you. So I think that's the key thing when you go, say, from spreadsheets as an organization to something like a donor management system. You're not having to do the same thing every time, create the same reports every time, drill into the same donor information every time. And it's the same here. It's just getting that background infrastructure so that people are not having to repeat tasks all the time.
And yeah, bringing it back to our sort of topic, I think that's the key in using tech to reduce burnout is absolutely start small. Let's start visibly, make sure everyone can see the effects of what you're doing, and you start building that momentum really quickly. So normally the quote is culture eats strategy for breakfast, but I also think culture eats technology for breakfast. And it's one of Formus Pro's and Microsoft's core beliefs. It doesn't matter how slick your tech is, the culture, it's the culture that's the operating system is what's important. If your culture doesn't support change, if it doesn't challenge the norms, doesn't matter what tools you bring in.
Yeah, we've seen organizations with really great platforms using like super modern tech. It's really further ahead than a lot of their counterparts, say, in the market from a technology point of view. But their people are often scared to try something new. So you can have the best platform and best technology, but people might, in that situation, revert back to old ways of working or workarounds if they feel like they don't necessarily know how to say, use the new system or process, but there is no culture of safety in asking questions or safety in challenging the norm.
Why we say fail fast, fail safe. A lot of that is about psychological safety for your staff. And actually, it's a huge part of reducing that burnout feeling. People need to know that they're not going to be punished for doing these experiments, playing around with AI and seeing, oh, does this work? Ultimately, they're trying to improve your mission. Let people experiment, build a culture where they can come to you with ideas and go, I've tried this with AI or I've tried this piece of tech, and I think actually it has a much wider purpose. What do you think?
Yeah, linking it back to the why as well. I think that your point there is when you go to the sort of unlock the next pillar, which is clarity. And then once people have got that clarity, tech rollouts don't stall because people get why the change is happening and what are the actionable steps needed to be taken to achieve that successful change. And I think if you and your people can't explain that why in one sentence, then you've lost them.
And I'm just conscious of the time, so moving on quickly, but that leads us to momentum, which we've already discussed. But stack those small wins, keep them going. If change is happening, make sure you're maintaining that, because as this change happens, your burnout will go down. The more people see the change working, the more they're going to believe in it. So yeah, culture eats technology for breakfast any day of the week. So where is everyone on the burnout curve? So we're going to have a quick interactive one just for a couple of seconds. You've all got your different sort of reactions. Are we 100% engaged? Are we feeling a little bit stressed, completely frayed out? Or are we on the edge going full postal burnout? Who's feeling confident enough to put in a reaction? It's okay if not, but I was just curious to see if anybody would.
Yeah, these are the types of, I think, frameworks that we'll often consider, like these types of where you are on the burnout curve. We try and gather this type of information from our clients and their staff when we're working through a project. And I think this one hits a bit personally for me, because I always realize I'm burnt out when it's too late. I think it's easy to be on that frayed stage and not know it. And then by the time you're burnt out, it's like, well, where did that all come from? So just like acknowledging it sometimes, acknowledging where you are on the curve, I think is, well, a good start that doesn't necessarily come to the front of your mind when you talk about stuff like this.
Yeah, And yeah, absolutely. But you also need to go back to that psychological safety. So yeah, there's now a bunch of people in the chat sort of talking about it, and it's absolutely fantastic. But you need to make sure your staff and volunteers can talk about it as well in a self-conscious way. So knowing where you are on the curve is vitally important. Of course it is. Self-awareness is always important, but actually having that, going back to the previous slide, having that culture where everybody else is okay to go, feeling a bit stressed, boss. Whoa, I'm totally afraid today. Something needs to change. I'm coming close to burnout. That is vital, that they feel comfortable enough to sort of like raise their hand and talk.
Yeah, it worked well on a session we had actually with one of our clients' volunteering teams as a volunteer coordinator, and we had a similar kind of conversation with her, and she was saying she'd been like, well, realizing, I guess, she'd been operating in that like frayed category for months, and just diagnosing it helped her realize it, and then start being able to more clearly articulate and advocate for the improvements that did need to be made. And I think on a micro level, once you are, there's a lot of people in the chat that have said they're afraid, for example. I was definitely there a little while ago with self-imposed, but just realizing it and then taking the next step to, right, now I know I'm burnt out. Why is it? Is it because I feel like I'm not doing what I should be doing or enough of what I should be doing? And what you should be doing, calling back to an earlier point, that's not always clear because it gets lost in the noise. So I think taking the time to self-reflect a bit and realize I've got a never-ending to-do list, but actually what's the most important stuff that's going to either drive my mission or get my project done? And I think it is important to deprioritize stuff sometimes and not feel bad about it. There is anxiety that can be caused around it. It's easier said than done, but I think those are some good principles to follow.
Going to absolutely panic Steve now and go off script, because actually something he just said there is really telling, and I don't think he realized. So he was saying he was sort of stressed, and it was okay. It doesn't matter that I was stressed because it was self-imposed. Actually, that does matter, and that is important, and that's why these gentle check-ins are important, especially in the non-profit sector. People are here for the mission, and they will take a weird level of stress that you would never get in the commercial sector. So it's really vital that you are doing these gentle check-ins and you are sort of taking steps to alleviate them, which is obviously the main point of this, alleviating it, but looking for those signs and sort of noticing stuff like Steve just said and saying it doesn't matter if it's self-imposed or externally imposed. You still need to be keeping an eye out for them. Sorry to make an example of you there, Steve, but I think that was you raised an important point there without even realizing.
Yeah.
So we did promise to reimagine the working week, and with change, what changes with the right tech. And this is the bit that all comes together. And I promise you, there's only 2 more slides after this, so we should finish bang on time for those that have been patient. So thank you. But yeah, if you just take a look at the before or after, it's the same team, it's the same mission, but totally different experiences, and it all starts with that relationship to AI and technology.
Yeah, that's it. Before is chaos, like admins eating up all people's time. It's reactivity, not proactivity. People are chasing their tail in that before section, constantly asking what should I be doing right now, and trying to manage priorities, and ever seeming to fail, which is probably a very common feeling I bet a lot of us have had.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, to be honest. I mean, after you've automated that admin grind, you then no longer just sort of responding or reacting. You can be anticipating. You're no longer buried in spreadsheets. You actually get to focus on the impact you're making.
Yeah, that's it. And taking it off the hypothetical again, and given maybe another kind of idea, real world example of where we've seen something like this transition. One of the nonprofits that we work with, all it took was using a Power Automate, a tool in the Microsoft Power platform. We rebuilt
a cheap one too.
Yeah,
it's not a big transformation.
Yeah, so a lot of the kind of Microsoft licenses already include a small sort of Power Automate capacity as well. And what we did with that is we automated one of their workflows where data was fed routed into Power BI, for example. And so they were spending loads of time manually recreating Power BI reports every time they wanted to see that. That automated flow of the data and report creation meant that all of those reports were updated live. And so because they're not spending half their days doing the reporting, they can then plan more proactively some of the interesting insights and data sources that they can then take from to form more meaningful reports later down the line, rather than perhaps pushing out stagnant reports every time because it takes so long to create them that you don't have time for any interesting content to be in them.
We're getting to the commercial part of the call, so apologies, but how can we help? And actually, one of the things that we do for everyone is free system health checks. And this is a completely free system health check. We'll come in, we'll spend typically a day with you. And Steve, I'm going to let you talk about this more. We'll take a look under the hood and then we'll just make some sort of gentle suggestions to you. If you want to take them and have us implement them for you, absolutely brilliant. We'd love to partner with you. If you feel you can do it yourself, even better, you go for it. But I know, Steve, you are a big fan of these, right?
Yeah, this, to be honest, I prefer when projects start like this, because tying back to the principles of having clarity and knowing what direction you need to travel in, just like checking the systems that a charity has and the processes that they have and the integrations between them all means they have then a clear picture of what they've got, what is working fine, because they can probably keep and link into any new systems they put in, and then what just flat out isn't working or is at risk or is going to be decommissioned in a few years. And then that helps us create a roadmap for our clients or our people that engage us to do this for them, and give them actionable steps on how to get where they want to get to based on best practices and what we've seen work well for other charities. So as James said, this is something that we offer for free, and there's no tie-in
No
for
commitment,
anything.
no
We leave you with a
NDA.
report.
Well,
You
I
just
mean,
do
we
whatever
will
you want with
sign.
it.
Yeah, exactly. However, given that we have been talking about burnout, given we have been talking about simple, small steps, something that we also offer is actually called AI in a day. That first step is vitally important. Just getting some AI into your database is vitally important. So we actually offer something called AI in a day. It's £1,000, so it's not going to break anybody's bank massively. What we will do is we'll come and look at some of your internal systems, your internal knowledge bases, where you store all of your data, and we'll actually point a chatbot at it. So your staff, now it's not linked to ChatGPT or OpenAI or Microsoft Copilot. This would be your own chatbot with just your own data in it. So your staff can actually ask questions. So who was our biggest donor last year? Okay, well, let's ignore the outliers. Who was our most regular donor last year? And actually it has access to all your database. So you've got that AI that people can talk to within, and one of the big things about generative AI is that actually you can talk to it and have sort of human conversations with it backwards and forwards. And actually a lot of people, it also comes with a half day's sort of AI training as well. But a lot of people are finding this quite interesting because it's a really quick and easy way to start that AI journey. So if you want to reach out to us about this one, absolutely. AI in a day, that's literally all it takes. We'll come down for one day, myself and one of our consultants, we'll put this in, we'll do your training with your staff. You can take it from there. We also offer to the non-profit sector a free CRM. So this is actually one of our products that is in the Microsoft Marketplace, and there is a cost associated to it. We waive that costs for non-profits. So it is on the smaller side. It is designed for the smaller non-profit. But if you are currently on the lookout for a CRM or are currently paying a fortune for CRM and feeling locked in, have a conversation with us. And this goes back to my very sort of beginning comments with Glenn. Have it for free. Play with it, download it, see if it's any good. It's yours. We're happy for you to have it. And that, ladies and gents, is the end of this sort of conversation. You can reach me there on LinkedIn. You can reach Forms Pro. Steve's business card is there as well. I'm going to pause around for a minute or two. Does anybody have any questions? So next webinar is mid-July. You'll all be getting an invite to that one. Get in touch with me or Steve about the AI in a day or free system health check. Happy to talk. But it's been lovely chatting to you all, and hopefully we'll see you all next time.
Thanks all. See you soon.
Oh, and I love that comment. Feeling positive. So are we. Thank you.